Hi there. Welcome to my YouTube channel, my podcast. I'm Adeoluwa, the faith-based counselor, and in this video, I want to talk about men needing to consider some things because I think a lot of women already know this. Some already suspect it, but they feel like, what else am I supposed to do, right? It is what it is. But for men who are willing to listen, it's about no country, no kingdom, no culture, no tradition rises above its women. None. And I will use maybe the British as an example. Whenever there are women, whenever women became king, it is interesting that when the women become the paramount rulers there, they always say for the queen, by the order of Her Majesty the Queen. Like, they are very, very unashamed to say that a woman is their king or the queen reigning over them. They have no problem with that. Whoever is the first in line or next in line, or the one who is most qualified or has the leadership abilities and so on and so forth, depending on the arrangements they make. But women do get to rule there. And it is interesting that all the colonies they had, all the countries they colonized, invaded, and all of that, very few of them had women as their leaders. Very few of them. India, for instance, had the, shall we say, they had great women. Their history talks, they eulogize their women a lot, but it would appear that they don't, despite the fact that they eulogize their women, they they seem to respect their women, they speak well of them and all. But when it comes to actually putting their women in leadership positions, they don't like it. They don't like it as much as Africans don't like it either, right? No matter how the woman has to prove herself, and even that is never enough, because it's not even about the woman's ability. It's about them not wanting women over them. And I listened to some people talk about Indian history, especially as it relates to women. And I realized that a lot of them, right, had situations where the women were the most qualified. But the woman would be the one who would rather support, you know, be the kingmaker, literally. Support him, put him on the throne and all of that, you know. The best a woman could get probably is being a queen mother, but she is not part of the major decision makers, as it were. They don't have a council where women can be and they can talk and deliberate and all of that. Like, women kings were just not a thing. And maybe that's why the woman king, for one, was not very popular. Of course, there's Jhansi Kirani, but even Jhansi Kirani was not, not very popular either. I think, from what I have read, or rather heard about the Manikanika, the Queen of Jhansi, it's interesting that they did not allow her be king, or rather sit on the throne, because she's a woman, that sort of thing. And the British wanted her removed from there because obviously they wanted to put their own person there who would listen to them, if you know what I mean. And I'm like, y'all have a woman as your queen, and you have a problem with another woman being queen somewhere else. So I guess they understand a principle, a spiritual principle that both Indians and Africans do not want to recognize. I would say Asians even, because I don't think they have many females who were seated on the throne and all of that. And so you have a situation where in Africa, in India, there aren't that many women who are kings, who were kings, who were ruling. In Africa, they've already like defamed women as not able to sit on the throne. Like, even especially when they are very powerful, you hear things about, oh, every man they lay with winds up dead, literally, so they always kill the men that they are with. But and because they always do that, that's why they are not allowed to be king. And it's probably true in the cases of one queen or two, but to assume that all the females who had ever reigned as king across Africa did the very same thing is a little too much, really. But then again, they don't cancel men and say, oh, because the man's role was this, because he kills the women he sleeps with and all of that stuff, or whatever excuse they want to give. So we don't allow men to. You understand? Maybe a man would. Maybe she would not have felt the need to have to kill somebody if, number one, the man was not probably trying to betray her. There is that part. Because obviously, her being king or queen, as it were, does not, her being the ruler is not sitting well with quite a number of men. So chances are they will be in cohorts with her, whoever her consort is, whoever her lover is. And that man could decide to, and they can promise him things. You understand? They can promise him, oh, we'll give you this kingdom, that kingdom, we'll make you a deal, we'll do this, we'll do that, but just, I mean, it's not okay. I mean, she's good and all of that, but come on now. And they usually come up with this after the kingdom has been established. They will let you do all the work. That's the crazy part of this whole thing. None of these men will come up and have these silly excuses of why you cannot be a ruler while everything is hot, right? Usually they will allow, in quote, a woman to get to the throne when, as men, they have lost their, like that, they don't even have any idea on how to recover their sovereignty. They've lost it. So it's like, let's just give it to a woman so that if it falls apart, we'll say it fell apart in the hands of a woman. Then this woman gets there. She rises from the ashes, raises the kingdom from the ashes of where it was, takes it to the zenith, and they hate her for that. Because how dare you resurrect something that is already dead? How dare you? Like, they benefit from it, but they don't like it. Like, why is it that is a woman that does that? And then when they wait for her to stabilize everything is fine and all, then the plots now begin. The conspiracies now begin. And so, did anybody ever think, for anybody who is not biased against women, that is, that maybe those lovers that were killed were traitors? They turned out to be traitors. And what happens to somebody who commits a treasonable felony against a ruler? Even till today, they are arrested and probably killed. To even today. We don't talk about that, do we? And yes, of course, she might not put him forward to be tried or something along those lines. Like maybe he's trying to kill her in her sleep or something, and the warrior in her comes up, and by default, she just attacks him and is like, it's you. And they say, oh, she attacked. Men have that same issue too. Women are sent, and they, as what some people will call, in China, they call them honey traps. Some other culture, they call them all kinds of things. There's even a culture where women are poisoned. They are, what's the word I will use now? They are what they call poisonous. Yeah. They are poisonous. Like they have that immunity to ingest a lot of poison. However, they are the ones who can body it. If their saliva or any fluid from their body, in other words, all they have to do is just kiss anybody and that person just dies. These women are weapons that are often cultivated. Of course, she has to be beautiful. You understand what I mean? So these women are like cultivated to as a last resort, especially when a man seems unconquerable and they're trying to conquer a kingdom and they're like, let's send women to how many concubines, how many wives of kings have been killed. And nobody came up to say, oh no, we cannot have men as kings anymore because you see, they kill all the women, half of the women, quarter of the women that they've ever slept with. No one talks about that. Oh, she must have done something. And you didn't think that maybe these men that these female rulers were accused of killing, calling them the Black Widow spider, demonizing them. Apparently, every good thing they've done doesn't count, but she killed a man. Yeah, well, but someone sent a man to kill her. May I? Like, you didn't think about that. Like, why would she just kill a man for that? I'm not saying one person didn't do it, but to label all the women as that is very suspicious and it does not tally well. Then again, at this point, the choice is yours as men. If you want to remain slaves to other men, you want to remain enslaved to other men, their decisions, what they choose to do, what they don't want to do. You want to keep speaking other people's languages, wearing other people's clothes, your own language, your own mother tongue. See, again, that is that thing. When women, you can't rise above the women. So, in other words, it's either you uplift these women, you uplift the women in your life so that you would be at the zenith, or you keep your women in their place, quote and unquote, and you are lower. And those who are putting their women above themselves, the men who are putting the women above themselves, they're the ones ruling over you. Look at all the countries that embrace feminism. No matter how toxic you might say feminism is, no matter what you have to say against feminism, those are the countries that you, who does not go to have a feminist country, you are going there. You are rushing there. You understand? You are getting visa to go there. Those are the countries you go to holiday. You work there. You will sell everything you have in your country where men are king and feminism is just not allowed. You can't even live there. You have to go to this country and go and stay there and abide by the rules that are there about thou shalt not, if a woman has any reason to accuse you of anything, you're guilty until proven innocent. If you look at a woman in a way that makes her uncomfortable, you're in trouble. No catcalling. And yet, you all struggle, do everything you can to get into those countries. That principle still stands. A nation cannot rise above its women. If you think your women's rights are not important, you don't think women should be equal to you, you would be beneath other men that see women as their equals. That's why your own country is not livable for you. You can't live there. And who are the ones who are even making the country unlivable for you? It's not even the women, it's your fellow men. Do you see that? It's your fellow men. They are the ones who are there. And the truth is, sometimes I think this is a no-win situation at this point, because I'm like, if men, these same men that are complaining about their leaders not being good enough, blah blah blah, and they're complaining and complaining, if they know a woman would do would make the country so beautiful for them to live in, they will still not vote for her. In fact, they will rather vote for someone else than vote for her. It's probably, I don't even know, a lot of things. Yes, there are some countries that I can say and some kingdoms that got away with, not giving women their proper place, but those ones, they have a different way and system of doing things. They have a different way and system of doing things. But all in all, the choice is yours, men. Oh. I remember Deborah. Madame was just sitting under her palm tree doing her work. She left the warfare for the men. They were facing all their troubles. The trouble was still there. Men from other kingdoms were harassing them and so on and so forth. But it took women, a woman, to finish that job, to bring total victory to them. Because when they came to her and were like, we want you at the battle. And she was like, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable that a woman will be the reason you win? At that point, the general was like, or the commander-in-chief was like, please, as long as we win, I don't care. Maybe he's a new general that just understands that, look, it doesn't matter. As long as we just win, that's what matters the most. Barak was the one that came to her and be like, please follow us. And she had to ask them, like, are you comfortable with that? Because I love her calmness. Like, we all sit down here and be looking at ourselves while you keep fighting your fellow men and keep losing. When the weapons are not your sword, not your strength, but women. As long as you don't see women as your equals, or see them for, as, I don't know how else to put it, as human, equally human. Someone who probably has abilities to do things that you can't do, that your strength cannot do. Because there are some things that brute force cannot handle. And I have a suspicion that Sisera had a kind of sorcery behind him that is engineered by his mother and her ladies. If you read the book of Judges, where Deborah ruled, you see that prophecy where Deborah was talking about, Sisera's mother and her ladies and all of that. And what came to my mind was, so the brain and the power and the secret behind Sisera's ability to not be defeated was because of his mother. How do you think you can fight that as a man when it is woman's power that is behind it? Which is why it made sense to me, I don't know about you, why it was a woman. A woman physically followed the men. Well, physically and spiritually, if you ask me, because she was a prophetess, followed the men to the battle. And they lost. The man, the Sisera was running for his life, and they ran into a woman who he thought he was safe with, and that one finished him. And that's how they won that battle. By the presence of one woman and the work of another, making two women. But I'm beginning to realize something, that men will rather lose a kingdom. They rather lose everything, including their own lives, before they will allow a woman be king. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why the Woman King movie that had Viola Davis in it and so many other big shots in it was not as popular as it ought to be, because you see how popular Wonder Woman is. So it would appear that the only women that are widely recognized as being able to be kings are Caucasian looking women. When it's a black woman, it's not allowed. So hence people were talking about how, it's not historically accurate. Well, is the Wonder Woman historically accurate? Yes, y'all went to watch it. Y'all went to watch it. It's so popular that they are redoing it and redoing it and redoing it, and you're still watching it. Like, are you really going to sit back and think about where your biases lie and why? All I'm just going to say to women is, don't allow society to define you. Don't allow men to define you. Let your maker define you. Let your abilities, what you can do. But I think more than that, let your maker be your definition. God does not create inferiors. God did not create anyone to be inferior to anyone. The Bible says, and he blessed them, and he said, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, subdue the earth. He didn't say subdue one another. He blessed them, meaning the man and the woman, and every product, every offspring that is going to come out of them. So all of us right now, we were all in Adam. And so we have all been blessed to be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, subdue the earth. Nowhere did he say subdue one another. Some men will try to go, well, we're not talking about a woman having rights outside of the home, but in the home. I'm like, a nation begins from the home, from the family. So if in the home the woman is being subdued, a woman will be subdued outside the home too, because you will go out there and practice it. And that's why you hear some men say things like, I have your type at home. You cannot be one thing inside and be another thing outside. There is a saying, Ile Latin kwe shorode. Simply means that the measure of who you are, the goodness of you. I'm trying to interpret it. I'm trying to interpret, like, the best of you is not from outside in, it's from inside out. So if you are showcasing something good on the outside and you are bad on the inside, is who you are indoors. That is who you really are. Look at Ethiopia, for instance. I'm just giving you examples of countries that were either not conquered or that conquered. Isn't it interesting? They would whisper into your ears as men that women should not rule, but on the order of Her Majesty the Queen. On the order of Her Majesty the Queen. Your own men will rather bow to women kings from other races and other ethnicities, but would die first before they bow to their own women. The choice is yours, I guess. In Ethiopia, they had a different... Yes, it was a tough battle, and I won't say they have recovered from it yet, but they were not conquered. Unlike other African kingdoms, they were not conquered. You know why? There are many reasons, but one of it is that a woman, okay, was the one who strategized the victory that they had over the Europeans that came to them, that tried to colonize them. It was a woman that did that strategy, not the man, the woman. She was an empress. Her husband was the ruler, the emperor. And if you read that story, I mean, the story Home Team has a story on her. That's where I even saw it. Home Team on YouTube. They have the story on her where she refused. She could have, and I'm grateful that she refused to be subdued because her husband was about to agree to give out colonies. I don't know how many even, is it bewitchment or something? Like, what makes you an emperor is that you have a collection of kingdoms up under you. If you now start giving out kingdoms under you, you are reducing your own power. But he was about to, because he thought maybe if I just give them this kingdom, they will not wage war at me. No, sir. They will get that one, and then they will start using that one kingdom you gave them to take over other kingdoms. So that war you are trying to avoid, it will still happen. But by that time, you would have reduced your own abilities to the point where you are not as empowered as you were before you started dishing out kingdoms like candy. And the empress was like, no, if that was how our forefathers were doing, you would not have a kingdom to be an emperor over. And that's just the truth. You will not have a kingdom to be an emperor over. So interesting, isn't it? And her husband listened to her. Halfly because, of course, the you know, the Italians who were the ones, trying to take over Ethiopia at the time, they what did they do now? They tried to tell the king, you cannot, how can you allow a woman to be telling you what to do and all that? The empress wasn't having it. And so she was like, we'll go to war. And they went to war and they won. It was not easy, but they won. Imagine if the empress was not insistent. Imagine if she wasn't, empowered enough. She has ancestors and ancestresses that were, or women in her history. There was the Queen of Sheba. I guess Queen of Sheba is like the word Pharaoh is in Egypt. So maybe that's what they call their women empresses, their empresses, Queen of Sheba, I don't know, because the Queen of Sheba was also repeated in the New Testament. So when you have a kingdom where women and men were equals, they recognize that they have different strengths, but that those different strengths were pivotal to the development of a country or a kingdom. Out of all the countries and kingdoms in Africa, Ethiopia seems to be like the only one who has their original language as their first language. Every other African kingdom, they now have English, French, or any other European language you can think of as their first language. Why their own mother tongue? See, when you don't give honor to a mother figure, to motherhood in the lives of women, you demote yourself. That's what happens. And now the mother tongue is now considered vernacular. You are not considered educated if your mother tongue is all you can speak. But when you can speak a European language, oh wow, you're educated. The Ethiopians have no such issues. I'm just saying this so that you can do the research yourself. There is a saying that, a word is enough for the wise. I certainly hope that all the men who watch this, you're wise enough to do your own research. You don't have to take my word for it, but I've given you something. So go and find out and then ask yourself if you still like things the way they are. You can stay there, but you cannot be complaining. Do you understand? You know what to do. I'm just saying if freedom is on your mind and how much do you want your freedom? What price are you willing to pay to get that freedom? It will require that you renew your mind. Read history, understand history and how it's playing out. Understand some principles that you might not even get what the full meaning is, but just check it out. Study these things. Then you can now decide, okay, do I really want freedom, or it's better for other men to rule over you as a man, to tell you what to do, what not to do, how much you can have, how much you can have, and to dictate to you, to control you, or you want to carry your women on your shoulders, be their support, be their foundation, and by so doing, you rise and become equals among men. In fact, you become best among equals among men, especially as African men and as Black men. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. The Bible says the book of the law says, the book of God's law says, they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. I'll see you in the next audio or video. Peace.